Well, hello and welcome everyone to the SustinAfrica Project Final Results Webinar, which we've entitled From Results to Impact. I'm glad to see that so many of you are able to join our webinar. And as I said a minute ago, please feel free to engage with us through the chat. Tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're doing, and in the comments, please. My name's Giles Young. I'm a senior scientist at the Natural Resources Institute of Finland, and I'm the SustinAfrica Project Coordinator. I will give you a brief overview to start of the project, and then we will have 5 themed presentations of our main results, conclusions, and recommendations. Coincidentally, today is also the 56th annual UN Earth Day, which focuses on empowering individuals, communities, and institutions to sustain environmental protections. The theme of this year's Earth Day is Our Power, Our Planet, emphasizing community-driven action. And I think this is highly appropriate for our project on sustainable agriculture driven by smallholder farmers. So happy Earth Day to you all. SustinAfrica, or Sustainable Intensification of Food Production through Resilient Farming Systems in West and North Africa, is a 5-year research project funded under the EU Horizon 2020 Research and Innovation Initiative. And I would especially like to thank the EU for all their help and support over the just over 5 years of this project, and particularly to Alina, our project officer. The project started in September 2020 and will end at the end of next month in May 2026. Thank you. Next slide. So we're a large multinational, multidisciplinary project. We have 17 partners across 11 countries in Africa and Europe. We have a mixture of universities, research institutes, non-governmental organizations, and small, medium-sized enterprises. We have 4 partners in Ghana, 2 each in Finland, Germany, and Portugal, and 1 partner in Burkina Faso, and Niger, 1 in Egypt, 1 partner in Tunisia, also 1 in Italy, Austria, and Ireland. I won't read all the names out. The rationale for the project is to address key issues in African farming systems. As I'm sure many of you are aware, large areas of agricultural land in West and North Africa are heavily degraded with low productivity. Key problems include water scarcity, low soil fertility, poor plant health. In West Africa, water availability, low levels of organic matter and nutrient retention often severely limits productivity, while in North Africa, again, water scarcity, salinization, wind erosion, crust formation and compaction are all major agricultural problems. These problems are due in part to the use of unsustainable agricultural practices, and the resulting low food productivity and poor resilience to climate change and extreme climate events clearly have major socio-economic and environmental consequences. The headline aims of SustinAfrica are to help and empower West and North African smallholder farmers and small to medium-sized enterprises to sustainably intensify their farming systems, to develop and deploy a framework of targeted and sustainable agricultural practices and technologies, and to facilitate the introduction of these practices. There are 5 key strands to our research, and these will form the 5 presentations that you will hear shortly. Firstly, we have analysis and monitoring, both qualitative and quantitative, of our chosen research areas and communities so that we can monitor and understand the communities we're working in. Secondly, to test, develop, and introduce smart farming technologies to manage and monitor plant performance. Thirdly, on-farm research and demonstration trials to test sustainable and resilient farming methods and systems over differing agroecological zones. Fourth, We have training and education to assure the transfer of knowledge gained during the SustinAfrica project. And finally, developing exploitation strategies for our methods, technologies, and solutions to ensure the lasting impact of the project. Next slide. Next slide, sorry. Yes. Here are the 5 countries we're researching in and the major crops that we're looking at. In Burkina Faso, we're studying maize, cotton, and sorghum. In Ghana, mango, maize, and pineapple. In Niger, millet, cowbee, and sorghum. In Egypt, cotton and olive. And in Tunisia, olive. Next, please. So today we will summarize our key results and findings from the SustinAfrica project. We've scheduled about 90 minutes for this webinar and have a great deal to pack in. We have 5 expert speakers pictured here to give an overview of each of our key research areas. Each presentation will be 10 to 12 minutes and then we should have a couple of minutes for questions. Please write your questions in the chat and I will read them out and our presenters will answer them. If you can put them into the Q&A section, which you may need to access by clicking on the 3 dots at the bottom of your screen. There's a little tab that says Q&A. That would be very helpful. Then we can separate the questions from the other chat. If you put them in the chat, we'll find them anyway. We'll also keep a list of questions and aim to answer any ones we don't answer during the webinar when the webinar is finished. And again, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining, and I hope you find this webinar enjoyable, informative, and useful. We'll now move to our first presentation. And let me introduce our speaker, which is Idalina Dias-Sardina. She's an invited associate professor at ISEC, the Lisbon School of Economics and Management. She holds a PhD in environmental management from the University of Amsterdam. Her career combines research and applied work across diverse cultural contexts, including professional and project experience in several African countries: Mozambique, Niger, Ghana, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Tunisia, and Egypt. And in SustinAfrica, she leads our baseline data collection and collaboration between African and European institutions on resilient farming systems and sustainable intensification. So Idalina, over to you.
Thank you very much, my dear Giles. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here with us. I'm Idalina Dias-Sardina, and I'm representing ISEC, the University of Lisbon, and also represent the ISEC team, of course. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my SustinAfrica colleagues, amazing people, for their incredible work and companionship for almost 6 years. It was really a pleasure to work with you all. Let me start with the main purpose of this work. Next slide, please. During the 5 years of SustinAfrica, our work was centered to this understanding of the farming systems and institutional environments across the 12 agroecological zones in the 5 countries that we were working with. We had 4 main linked objectives. First was to map the farming systems and to collect standardized baseline data on the socioeconomic, institutional, environment, and the agribusiness dimensions. The second was to characterize the current conditions, means the constraints, the opportunities faced by the farmers and, of course, by the territories we were in. All that information, this evidence, should then support or help to the sustainable intensification pathways to be done further. So our 4th objective, still a part of the baseline, it's also to create a basis for a monitoring system change over time, and then coming out and assessment sustainable intensification framework. I want to underline that the standardization and the diagnosis for all the countries was really essential because SustinAfrica operates in very different contexts. A farming system that is irrigated, it's an irrigated olive landscapes in north of Africa have completely different challenges, opportunities as a rain-fed millet-based system that is in Sahel, Niger, Burkina, or a mango maize system in Ghana. So to answer to all these objectives, we created an approach that was systemic and adaptable to local realities. Next slide, please. So means we adopted a systems-based approach because sustainable intensification depends on the interactions among the soils, among water, crops, labor, markets, knowledge systems, public policy institutions. So methodologically, we start by combining the systematic literature review of 60 publications, the development and that permitted to develop a shared assessment toolbox with 18 tools. Those tools were surveys, workshops, formats, field measurements, and so on. And then we used a mixed method analysis based on Oxstrom's socio-ecological system framework. So for this work, for the work package one means for this work that was all along for the 6 years, but more at the beginning, we trained the 40 enumerators, surveyed 705 households in 23 communities. We conducted 16 workshops with 200 participants and mapped around 100 stakeholders. And all this information is available on the Margadata platform. And our work results from this total data, this collection, bridge the diagnosis to action to support the further developments on the other work packages. So with that methodological foundation, I now move for the main findings overview. So, main findings overview were organized in the multi-level overview because the baseline was collected very comprehensive, but we today have no time for focus in all findings, so we are focused only on some of the key findings. In this way, we give you a brief layout by presenting the farm systems through this multi-level perspective. We start by comparing the five countries, which gives us an overview of the institutional context. Then we compare 12 agroecological zones, but to understand only on the level of ecosystem services to understand the regions. And we compare small farmers to identify different farm profiles. All of these will be completed by my colleagues further to have a more overview of what happened mostly on agroecological zones and is one of the most relevant. These three levels give us an integrated view of the farming systems. I will now move to the institutional context findings. So the first typology of findings at macro level. This slide shows key differences in the institutional context across the 5 countries looking at both formal and informal institutions. What is really interesting to have this, to found this and study these two levels. In Burkina Faso, formal policy structures exist but have limited capacity, while community-based social networks, these informal dimension groups, are central to knowledge sharing. In Egypt, the institutional framework is stronger, and peer learning networks, help farmers adapt to innovations that come over. In Ghana, national programs support access to inputs and mechanization, but the customary authorities still are important for mediating the access to land and even to credit. In Niger, the national initiatives are really of relevance, but the outcomes still depend on the local organizational capacity and the land access. And customary institutions really also shape the access to the resources and to the labor. In Tunisia, stronger state regulation, and also as important irrigation policy coexist with the weaknesses in collective water management and the presence of parallel markets. This was at an institutional level. So all in these findings show that the farmers operate within a broader institutional environment that shape whether sustainable intensification is realistic in practice. SustinAfrica aims not only to identify food production, but also to maintain and improve ecosystem services. This means farming systems should not be evaluated only by how much they produce each season. It should also be evaluated by how well it maintains the soil and water biodiversity, promotes resilience, and increases social value over time. So when we go to the findings regarding the ecosystem services, we see that results show a mixed picture across these services. We have of three types of ecosystem service: provisioning services, regulation, maintenance service, and cultural services. The first are relatively strong, with high yields and a local genetic pool, but crop residues and usable wild plants are still limited. Regulation and the maintenance services also show that water retention, erosion prevention is high, but decomposition, pollination, carbon storage, and habitat for natural pest control still remains low. And cultural services that we studied with much attention also reveal a strong traditional and symbolic connection to crops that we studied. Although high levels of enjoyment are found only in Tunisia with its olives.
Italina, you have about 1.5 minutes left.
Thank you.
Please.
The third and the last major findings, next slide, please, are also show also the farmers themselves are diverse. So the farmers show, the slide shows that farmers cannot be treated as one uniform group. We identify 4 broad farmer profiles, ranging from small peripheral farmers to more connected input intensive systems, and also subsistence farmings facing severe material constraints. And you can see that the first ones, small peripheral farmers, it's more in Ghana and Tunisia, and the connected farmers in Ghana, Egypt, and Niger, and the input farmers on the 5 countries, given that the Niger and Burkina really have mostly subsistence farming farmers. So I finally let you know,
please.
I finally let you know with our main take-home messages. The main take-home message is that sustainable intensification must be tailored to different farmer profiles, agroecological zones, and national contexts. Our results show that institutional conditions shape sustainability outcomes, so policies need to combine formal regulation with support for local and informal arrangements. Water governance is a major cross-cutting bottleneck. We need investment must go with community management capacity. We also found that weak extension systems and knowledge asymmetries limit innovation. So please, while farmer-to-farmer learning networks are really crucial, market access, gender inequality, ecological degradation are all affecting what is necessary to be done on ground. So I end up by saying that overall systems, sustainable intensification strategies, pathways need to be context-specific, socially inclusive, and ecologically responsive, as you will further see through my colleagues' presentations. So next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Adelina. You're out of time.
Look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Many thanks for a very informative presentation. We have time for a quick question. So let's ask you, what I have a question here. What are the biggest challenges faced in the baseline data collection? If you could, big question, brief answer, please.
Okay, I think I have to say the first that in certain countries, for example, relatively to the information, the data collection relatively to nutrition, we had some matters related to access to women. What this makes hard to further analyze the information adequately, given that we're not the women giving the information all the time. That was one. Another thing was all the constraints that we had in the field. Numerators have to deal with a lot of surprises in the middle of the Sahel or in other conditions. And I think it's also very difficult on the data collection, what it was, the training also obliged us to deal with different language, not only between all the partners, but also between the enumerators and the regions. So all our methodologies have been tested are piloted. We went to different regions to test the tools, but even then, we always have to think that everything needed to be translated for the local.
So a lot of issues, Adelina. It sounds like you had a lot of challenges, and I think you did an excellent job.
Really very interesting.
Thank you very much. So I think we should now move on to our next presentation, and I'll introduce our next speaker. If you could bring up the presentation, please, which is Dr. Michael Shearman. He's a senior scientist at the Leibniz Institute for Agricultural Engineering and Bioeconomy, ATB for short. He holds a PhD in geography from the Humboldt University of Berlin. Has 20 years of research experience focusing on sensor-based monitoring of crops and soils for precision agriculture. His research work includes UAV monitoring, weed and plant disease recognition, machine learning, meta-analysis, proximal soil sensing, sample design development, and geostatistical spatial mapping. So lots of complicated stuff. In SustinAfrica, he leads our smart farming technologies for plant production. So over to you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Giles, and thank you for having me here at the SustinAfrica Results webinar. So I'm actually the work package leader for workbench 2 in this project, and we were focusing on smart farming tools mainly, how we can make them also available and bring innovation for sustainable intensification. So please, next slide. Maybe start shortly with a short definition of smart farming, because it's relatively undefined wording. I mean, mainly smart farming is defined as using digital technology and data to support decision-making in agricultural production systems. It came a little bit from precision agriculture as a development, but precision agriculture is much more in focusing on managing variability, also with more static data. So for example, with soil maps and something like this, whereas smart farming is much stronger evolving and around collecting a lot of data, like from satellite, from drones, from portable loggers, from robotics nowadays also, and using simulation models in order to get a more comprehensive information system for a whole farm. It somehow also diverged from the topic of digital agriculture, which has a much broader meaning, where smart farming much more focused on farm managing. Next slide, please. How we can actually also make it available in Africa, in West and North Africa. This was a question in this project mainly. And such systems, such smart farming tools need, of course, investigated in order how can we use them in a low cost and also easy to use way, which should also be adaptable to the ways how we can invoke in Africa. So especially in SustinAfrica, we combined digital tools for crop pest and water monitoring. Monitoring was a very strong topic in our project, and our large goal was to build up a modular toolbox at the end. So we focused on better decisions, lower input dependency, and also more resilient production systems when we try to sort those technologies. Next slide, please. How was the core concept here in this regard? So we started a bit about thinking, okay, we need first to understand, have a planning, and then measuring was a very important aspect, but also how to interpret and bring it back into acting. So one of the first things we had to do was to screen a lot of smart farming technologies and put them into a database. We strongly worked also together here with Idalina in order to make this screening more objectively. And also we worked together with companies in Ghana in order to bring up a GIS system, Dex Africa GIS, where we can structure and organize fields in the beginning as a planning process. But the major aspect was, of course, measuring, monitoring, and especially focused on plants, plant production, plant diseases, but also pests and water. So here we have some tools like Sustain Monitor, Insectamon, and where we remote sensing, which I will later also tell you a bit in detail. And also diagnosis, we can feed it back to a GIS system, but also then maybe interpretation back into the database we started at the beginning. So next slide, please. When we screened the smart farming technologies, we also asked farmers in workshops how they see these specific tools we found out. We had a specific subset of tools, of course, which helps us to first present them and to discuss them in more detail. What's interesting, very important for them was unanimously among the countries, irrigation tools or smart irrigation tools. Here, high interest meets also on the other side high adoption barriers. So they thought also it's very complicated to integrate in the way we see smart irrigation. What was high of interest also, easy tools like information tools, the fertilizer app, insect recognition apps, or satellite data as a whole concept. But when we go in more technical details, you see in the lower end of the diagram, you see that, for example, if you ask for spectral indices like vegetation, like the NVI or something like this, if it's very technical, or like LiDAR scanning, when we go in specific devices, it is of much less interest. So it is actually interesting here. We need to try to adopt easy and interpretable tools which can be understandable and also adapted to the needs of the farmers in Africa. So next slide, please. Yeah, as a top-down approach, in the next level, we tested a lot of tools together with the farmers. So we used specific reference sensors, typically used in science, like a chlorophyll meter or LRE meter, where we get together with students and also farmers and how they work. And we build also calibration models on specific crops. We also introduced smart advisory tools, which are available already, like the Plantix app for plant recognition or the Blue Leaf irrigation planning system. And also a major aspect was trying out different remote sensing tools like UAV and also satellite image analysis. Next slide, please. Regarding field monitoring, we were actually also going directly into the fields, for example, for olive crop assessment or mango crop assessment using the SPAT sensor, where we build up calibration models between leaf chlorophyll and also leaf nitrogen, which we could also later use, for example, for our UAV remote sensing purposes. But we also implemented the Blue Leaf irrigation planning system in some of the countries, where we first modeled that there's a gain in, we modeled a strong saving of waters with this tool, but the problem was a bit that it's too complicated to implement at the current form. So it needs to highly adapt it in order to run them in the West African countries. Next slide, please. Regarding UAV remote sensing, we had use cases in olive and mango orchards, and in some cases also in maize in different countries, especially in Tunisia and in Ghana, where we used a spectral system, and we could derive from those very specific orchard systems high resolution 3D point clouds, where we could delineate from multispectral signal specific tree structural and also tree physical parameters like tree height, canopy volume, leaf area index, or leaf chlorophyll, where we found relatively good calibration models, and we could also feed them back into GIS systems. Next slide, please. Regarding satellite remote sensing, we built up a SustinMonitor tool, which allows us to feed in a polygon or an area of interest, a field or something, or even points. These will be used in this SustinMonitor workflow in order to download automatically Copernicus data, in this case Sentinel-2 data, which calculates specific indices and also time series indices, which helps us to collect then for this area plant physiological data over an interest of a specific time you are interested in. We had also more scientific research interests. For example, we built up a drought risk model, also with Copernicus data, in this case more with Landsat data, because this has also a thermal signal, thermal band. Here we built up an agricultural drought risk model together with AI and specific climate scenarios using meteorological drought and also vegetation drought, which was expressed by the TVDI from the satellite remote sensing. And we found out, for example, for the specific area of Tamale, that there will be expected by more emission models, more drought in the near future. Next slide, please. As a bottom-up approach, we built up Insectamon as an insect identification app, which can be used in a smartphone like a Google phone or also from iOS, from Apple. And we can take a picture from a yellow sticky trap and it will count all the pest insects in it. So what we did is actually we collected via our partners a lot of images from those sticky traps, built up a specific AI models, so-called where's the blobs, which is very focused on counting objects in an image. And we provided a dumbed down deployment model for the smartphone that it can, so that it can run even locally without any internet connection directly on the smartphone. So you can download the whole model into the app and then you can use it right away. Currently, it works with 4 different pest insects in mango and also olive.
You have
So
about one minute, Michael.
Next slide, yeah. We integrated some of those tools into the merge data platform as a smart farming tool. So you can access them via this platform and download, or you can even use it directly with an online GIS. So next slide, please. So to summarize everything, I would say we showed that smart farming for smallholder system should not be a single high-tech solution, but it needs to be a very flexible and adaptable system. So we focus here should not only be relying on the technical aspects of sensors and apps because it becomes too complicated to understand. It should be much better to be that we use the different data sources we collect nowadays from satellite, from UAV, from sensors, and so on, and translate it into a more comprehensive system for the farmers to understand. That is not only a problem for farmers in Africa. I would say it is even the same in Europe, that we need to find for farmers relatively straightforward solutions that help them in order to get better management decisions. And SustinAfrica, I would say, helped here to create and adapt technical tools, and also it initiated the first pathways for those smart farming technologies for practical use. So next slide.
And your time is up. Good time.
And thank you, of course, for your attention. And I would also thank all the partners within this project, which were a lot of them. And I think we worked with every partner at one point or the other. So I put every icon on it, what I could find, into the last slide. And I will want to really thank in this way also that we had such a good time in these last 5 years together in often not very easy times, like when I remember with the Corona times and we are still in Africa and doing experimentations there. Okay, thank you very much. And maybe you have some questions.
Great. Thank you, Michael, for a very engaging and interesting presentation. We do have some questions, if you could answer them fairly quickly. The first one that comes to me is from, Bellu Damen. Sorry, I probably didn't pronounce that correctly. Smart farming is very critical and helpful to smallholder farmers in Africa. But how do you see the problems with accessibility for connectivity, poor infrastructure, and development barriers existed? So I think, yes. How do you see those problems, poor infrastructure and development barriers?
Yeah, that is, of course, a very deep question because it is not easy to implement many of the tools. Many of the tools, of course, are run by smartphone, especially the information tools, which could help also connect a lot of farmers together in order to get an interesting information system to warn people each other. But that needs, of course, good connectability regarding, how is it called in English? Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, but you know what I mean. I mean that you have good connection.
Mobile network.
Network, yeah. That you have a good network. I think it will improve because it's much easier to build this than landline collections, which is not very interesting anymore. So with this build up, smart farming tools can be much better adopted, I think. Some technologies were also not easy for us to implement, like, for example, the drones, which are highly complicated in some countries. For example, in Egypt, it was not possible because of military problems, and that we cannot use them. But it is a system which is also in the main reason not really easy to use directly from the smallholder farmers. I would say it's an example which is much more usable for agricultural service provider. But those we have already, for example, with SustinAfrica in Ghana, they are already working like in Germany, very stable. They have very stable systems and they can provide high resolution information, which is to some extent already they are like the same in Europe.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. We need to move on. We have got some more questions for Michael, and we haven't got time for him to answer them, unfortunately, much as I'd like him to address them. So maybe you can go into the chat and answer them online, Michael. That would be very helpful. So next, we'll move on to our next presentation, Kwame Frimpong from UCC in Ghana, and I'll quickly introduce. So Professor Kwame Frimpong is an associate professor at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana. He holds a PhD in plant and soil science from the University of Aberdeen. He is the president of the Soil Science Society of Ghana. He is also the head of the Soil Science Department at UCC and served as the inaugural president of the African Association for Precision Agriculture. In the SustinAfrica project, he leads the critical farming and demonstration trials section of the project. So over to you, Kwame. We got his slide lined up.
Thank you very much, Giles, for that very flattering introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am very thrilled to have you here, join us in our conversation. And I will try to provide some insights into the aspect of the project which focuses on the targeted design and implementation of demonstration trials for resilient and sustainable agricultural production and delivery of ecosystem services. Next slide. These demonstration trials were physically located in Africa, Egypt and Tunisia in the north of Africa, and Burkina Faso, Ghana, and Niger in West Africa. However, I need to indicate that all the project partners from the 11 different countries contributed in one way or the other to the design or implementation or even the evaluation of the outcomes of the project. So we are grateful to everybody. This project adopted a multi-locational, multi-season approach across 12 different agroecological zones, which are reflective of the diverse climatic, soil, and technological situations in Africa. So the trials were site-specific, reflective of the climate, the soil, and crop preferences. They were customized, and we adopted the best agronomic practices that are tested and tried. And we also introduced innovations and technologies which have been very well spoken about by the previous speaker. Next slide. So these are pictures of the study areas in the 5 different countries. Next slide. So in this table, you find some of the crops that were tried, from pineapple, pigeon pea, mucuna, cotton, olive, fava beans, and the rest of them. Some of the agroecological practices that were adopted: compost, biochar, legume intercrops, inorganic fertilizer, biofertilizers, biopesticides. and some of the data that were collected during the trials. Next slide. Now, in addition to the physical data that was collected on field, we also did an ecosystem service assessment. By this, we used a very simplified survey instrument to seek responses from the farmers who were engaged, many of them in this project, about their perceptions regarding what ecosystem services were delivered as part of the SustinAfrica project. Next slide. So at this juncture, I want to dive deep into some of the key outcomes of the project. First, I want to talk about productivity and impact of input use. In Niger, by adopting improved varieties, we were able to considerably increase grain yields. In Burkina, adoption of integrated soil fertility management gave us good yields. In Tunisia, Egypt, and Ghana, by using organic amendments like compost and biochar also gave us competitive yields. By adopting intercropping with cereals or with tree crops also gave good productivity and evidence of system performance. Next slide. Now, I would also mention some specific findings because these were published in reputable journals or they were presented in international conferences. For example, in Egypt, we found out that organic cotton farming demonstrated superior environmental and energy performance compared to conventional approaches. Yield stability was better or comparable among the different systems, organic or conventional. Energy efficiency was better in the organic systems compared to the conventional systems. Next slide. In Egypt again, here we're talking about olives. We realized that organic treatment substantially improved fruit quality, increased fruit weight by over 50%, and doubled economic returns compared to where we applied exclusive inorganic inputs, which indicates that the agroecological systems that we adopted were resilient and environmentally friendly. Next slide. And Tunisia, we found out that by adopting legume intercropping, particularly in sandy soils, we achieved yield stability, which was highly significant. And when we adopted no-tillage systems, we were able to improve soil organic matter content and total nitrogen, which are very relevant for improved crop growth and productivity. Next slide. Now, talking about soil quality, we found out that in intercropping, improved soil cover and nutrient cycling in Tunisia and Ghana. In Ghana and Burkina, integrated soil fertility management also improved soil productivity so much. Next slide. Now, talking about the agroecosystem analysis, we found out that our agroecological practices improved not only provisioning services in terms of yield, but they also improved regulating systems such as water retention, and they also improved cultural agroecological systems, which we found were very, very relevant when it came to smallholder farming systems, because the farmers did not want to compromise the beauty of their farms. And the agroecological systems that we adopted greatly improved the aesthetic value of the farms. In Tunisia, for example, we found out that by adopting the intercropping, the cultural value improved considerably. The same thing was found in Ghana and in Egypt. And we also found out that by adopting these agroecological practices, we could improve agricultural biodiversity, especially in terms of the presence and diversity of beneficial insects, which had good implications for grain yields, fruit yields, and quality. Next slide. So here I will just do a quick summary of the findings. So in Tunisia, olive systems, in Ghana, mango systems gave good indication that legume intercropping can significantly transform agricultural productivity, profitability, and resilience in smallholder farming systems. By combining compost under plastic mulch, yield of pineapple increased considerably. By adapting improved varieties, millet varieties, yields were increased. ISFM, that is integrated soil fertility management, combining compost and inorganic fertilizer packages, improved soil productivity considerably, translating into high yields. Next slide. In Egypt, organic inputs enhance flowering, fruiting, and crop yield in cotton. And this is a very promising, environmentally friendly approach to sustainable intensification. Next slide. So overall, I can conclude, even though our project was done in site-specific manner, that is a very, very great indication. But by targeting the design and implementation of our demonstration trials, we could prove their technical feasibility. Not just that, we could also prove their efficiency and effectiveness in terms of yield outcomes, in terms of agronomic gains, in terms of profitability, and in terms of sustainability and resilience of smallholder farming systems. Next slide. Following from the observations we made, we wish to recommend that the agroecological practices should be validated in multi-locational trials before we can scale them subsequently. We should also prioritize precision agriculture in general and precision fertilization and irrigation so that we can mitigate environmental hotspots in the smallholder farming systems. Most importantly, we have to prioritize education, research, and innovation, and again, investment, so that we can further improve productivity, profitability, and resilience of our farming systems in Africa. Next slide. And I wish to indicate that we did not only do on-farm experimentation or farmer-centric practices, we also attended conferences and we also did some good publications. A lot of them are also in preparation and in press. And I need to also say that this project offered those of us, especially in Africa, the opportunity to train several hundreds of undergraduates, several tens and twenties of masters and PhD students. So we cannot be more than grateful. Next slide.
Well said, Kwame. Your time is up.
Yes, so I'll just
excellent.
acknowledge all participants, including farmers, researchers, input dealers, market operators, private and public sector players. And I want to thank you all for your time.
Excellent. Many thanks, Kwame, for a very clear and informative presentation. I think we probably have time for a quick question. If you could keep the answer brief. Let me look. Here's one from Philip Barton. What are the application rates of compost per hectare in the studies, and what kind of compost was used? Quite a big question, potentially. Lots of different sites, lots of different crops. So maybe just an example or two would be better than going through the whole list.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very important question. And as we said, we tailored everything that we did to the locations, what was applicable. So in Ghana, for example, we used pineapple waste in a biocircular economy approach to do the compost. In other countries, they would use the farm residues that they wanted. We wanted to use farm residues because we wanted to deal with waste issues, waste management issues, which leads to pollution. Now, talking about rates, we didn't adopt a one-size-fits-all approach. We looked about technical feasibility in terms of nutrients that will be supplied by the compost, and also economic feasibility because it involves labor and transport. So at the least, we added 5 tons per hectare based on nitrogen content especially, and at the highest, we applied 10 tons per hectare. But you can visit our projects and you will see all the details. You can also contact me personally, and I'm very ready to engage all of you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Kwame. You can also type a fuller list into the chat, or like you said, contact personally. That's good. All right, thank you very much. Time to move on to our next presentation, which is Adam, I think. Yes. So education and training. Let me just introduce our speaker. If I'm so sorry. Right. Dr. Adam Stranding is an invited professor at ISEC, again, the Lisbon School of Economics and Management. He holds a PhD in political science, specializing in public policy from the Universidade Nova de Lisbon, and his research focuses on the impact of diverse knowledge and expertise on policy change and social transformation. His recent work is focused particularly on gender diversity and the role of social science and alternative knowledges in sustainability transitions. In SustinAfrica, he coordinates our education and training program. So Adam, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully this will be quite clear. My own internet connection has been a bit shaky and it's frozen a little bit, but let me know if there's any technical problems and we can continue. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. It's really good to be able to present work package 4 here. It's also great seeing in the participant list many of our collaborators and partners and people who've worked so hard throughout the years across all of the work packages, but I see many names that are familiar to me in work package 4, so it's great. And this presentation is really a celebration of the work that everyone's put into this module on education and training. So we can start with the approach that we took. Mona, if you can move on to the next slide, please. The main objectives of the education and training program was really twofold. Firstly, we wanted to be able to translate the results that we're producing within SustinAfrica across all of the other work packages into training and education programs to help build the capacity of smallholder farmers and other stakeholders across Africa. And secondly, we also wanted to use these opportunities to help exchange knowledge with those stakeholders as well, so provide opportunities for those stakeholders to feed more knowledge and experience into the project to improve the interventions that we're developing. In the first place, our approach was to prioritize depth of knowledge over breadth. We wanted to valorize smaller audiences here, so we had smaller workshops, but with more detailed information here. Typically, our workshops lasted between 1 and 2 days. We also wanted to prioritize participatory methods here. So we had the traditional lectures and demonstrations, but these were complemented with these sessions that focused on two-way transfer of knowledge through facilitated discussions, giving people the opportunity to share their experiences and knowledge. And we also wanted our sessions to be stakeholder sensitive, meaning that we prepared the workshops from the very beginning with the partners as the experts in the field here, as the experts of their own context, in order to avoid this idea of a one-size-fits-all model for our training. Next slide, please. So how this was structured, we had in total 5 different training sessions here, each with a different specific topic and aimed at different groups of stakeholders. The first one was a training of trainers looking particularly at the application of smart technologies. The second one looking at the development and running and implementation of baby trials, focusing here on farmers, farmer organisations and community leaders. The third in-person training looked at good practices in soil and water management and how to enhance ecosystem and biodiversity services, again focusing on farmers, farmer organisations and community leaders. This training also adopted a drama pedagogy, so we used drama sessions. We asked our local partners to engage with professional actors and their drama departments in order to develop particular drama presentations to help more easily pass the message on. The fourth in-person training was focused on improving the capacity of women and youth to engage in sustainable agricultural practices and in the agricultural value chains. And this was focused particularly on men, women and young farmers and community members. And most recently, we've had these participatory country results workshops, which have looked at how we share and validate the results that have emerged from SustinAfrica with the relevant stakeholders here. And this, we've had a broad range of stakeholders involved in these, also including farmers, smallholder farmers, farmers associations, but including as well researchers, local policymakers and NGOs. In total, we've run 23 workshops and we've trained over 860 stakeholders. Okay, Mona, thank you. There are 3 particular features or characteristics or key important characteristics that have emerged in the results in our experience here that help to improve the efficiency and effectiveness and impact of the training and education. I'll go through each of these now. The first of these is relevance. How can we ensure that the interventions that are developed within the other work packages, the different agroecological technologies, practices and processes, are relevant for the different agricultural and environmental, social and economic contexts we face? We've heard our colleagues emphasise the fact that we have very different contexts here. How do we make these relevant for each of them? The first way that we do this is that we involve multiple stakeholders throughout the design process of these training packages. We actively ask what are the relevant needs and opportunities that we can provide for the training programs in each of the different countries. The second is to adapt and tailor the content in each of these according to the different value chains that we're dealing with and according to the different audiences. Again, this idea that one size fits all is much less effective here. And we also want to integrate the findings from throughout the project. So this involves building up the kind of communication network within the project that allows us to integrate the relevant findings for the right stakeholders. How can we ensure that the interventions that we're developing, the different practices and technologies, will actually be adopted by the end users? In the first place, we have to show that these work. We demonstrate the successful implementation of these practices, but we also have to adopt this holistic approach, which includes understanding and acknowledging that there are different social, cultural, and policy barriers to adoption. We also have to understand and be able to explain and share with the stakeholders the different risks and benefits that they may experience here, including potential economic and social benefits. Most importantly, we have to actually check with the users what would work, what is practical, what is possible within their own context. Finally, the results that we present and the capacities and the knowledge that we intend to share has to be legitimate. How can we ensure that interventions we're developing promote empowerment, equity and justice for the individuals and communities, and don't just simply reproduce the existing social relations and social marginalizations. In this sense, what we've found is that participation really must be substantive. It's not just a listening exercise. It's not just a case of providing a forum for people to talk, but it really is a genuine two-way exchange of knowledge where people's voices and experiences are valued. We have to work hard towards assuring the inclusion and diversity of participants. We need to make sure that people who are actually coming to the participatory sessions are from a diverse set of backgrounds. So we worked extremely hard with our partners to ensure this. And we have to value all experiences and voices. This is about creating the environment within these sessions where everybody's voice is heard and valued, and they can all have an input to this.
Adam, can I just break in? I know you're going to show a short film, and you're up to 8 minutes, so you probably.
I have one more slide. I have
good man. Good man.
I have one more slide. So. Perfect timing on this. We get to the conclusions. What are the main conclusions and the key levers to help us increase the effectiveness and the effectiveness of these kinds of training sessions? In the first case, effective food system transformation requires the development of capacity sharing programs that can ensure the relevant viability and legitimacy of interventions. This is not just a case of top-down us telling you what is best. It's about understanding we need some kind of participatory and reciprocal exchange of knowledge here. We don't want to have extractive research processes where we're just taking knowledge from stakeholders and not offering anything in return. And we don't want to be trying to persuade people to use socially ineffective or inappropriate innovations. We want to work with the stakeholders in this. So the key levers for these effective capacity sharing programs, we need to ensure that all stakeholders are on board with the program, with this holistic, horizontal approach to capacity sharing. And we also want to recognise the social, cultural, economic and environmental differences between the countries and regions. We don't want to just have a one-size-fits-all approach to education and training, but we want to actually make this effective for everyone. Okay, so the plan now, we want to show a short video. It's around 3 to 4 minutes. This is a brief glimpse at the kind of work that our partners have been doing, that ourselves and our partners have been doing in the workshops. I will say we've run this through the test a few times. It can be a bit glitchy. It's not very long. It's only quite short, but I think it gives a very good overview, a good vision of what we've tried to achieve.
baŋsim shɛli nyɛla bɛ tima kamandee tihi maa ni yɛn niŋ shɛm ka fulaawa kana di puuni ka n gbaai lala din maa ka di mali ma sɔŋsim ka wuhima tihi maa ni yɛn tirili kom tam shɛli ka diri anfaani di gba zaa ni dolli maa n nyɛ taɣibu pam di puuni n di anfaani di puuni di sani.
Shɛba tin yaɣiliri shɛŋa maa di lan moonsi maa di niŋdi tuma wandi pa to maa ka di niŋ ka a yi kaŋ ti nya di niŋdi diipan zaŋ ti tin yaɣiri shɛŋa maa ni yaɣi shɛŋa maa din ku niŋla di ko ti niŋ bindiri niŋ di puuni ka di tɔŋ li gba sa tɔŋ ŋɔ maa wala maa ka di chaŋ tooni ni ti tili ko shɛli maa.
المرة هذه جيت غيانكم باش نشوف الفيدباك اللي صار في الاتولي اللي قبل، وهكيك شفت اللي فما نتائج ظهرت اللي زلنا نتأقلموا مع الفلاحة العصرية ونستعملوا التكنولوجيا باش نجموا نقاوموا شح المياه ونقص الأمطار.
Différents traitements qu'ils ont fait et surtout j'étais agréablement surpris par le long labour parce qu'on a vu des résultats qui sont encourageants, surtout durant les années de sécheresse parce qu'on a vécu 2 ou 3 ans de sécheresse.
Great, thank you, Adam. I'm always impressed with those beautifully symmetrical blocks of biochar from Burkina Faso. So nice film, thank you very much, and thanks for the presentation. I'm afraid we're running a bit short of time, so maybe you could scan the questions in the chat, please, and get back to people who've addressed questions to you, and we can move on to Paul, the final of our 5 presentations. And if we can bring up the presentation, I'll just introduce Paul. So Paul Wagstaff leads a team of global technical advisors at the charity Self-Help Africa in Dublin, Ireland, providing technical support to Self-Help Africa's programs. Since starting his career as an extension officer with the Tanzanian Ministry of Agriculture in the 1980s, Paul has worked in smallholder agriculture development for non-governmental organizations, the European Union and African governments in over 30 countries in Africa and South Asia. Paul is a visiting lecturer in tropical agriculture at several Irish universities and coordinates research partnerships with international research institutes. In SustinAfrica, he is responsible for developing our exploitation strategies. So, over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Giles, and thank you to everybody for joining us on this results webinar. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'd like to thank our colleagues at the Mediterranean Institute in Italy, Andy and Jenny, for their research on the replicability of the technologies we've been working on. So this is the results of their analysis, which are overall that the replicability constraints are primary contextual and institutional, and these are not simply researchable problems. So, for example, in Burkina Faso and Niger, irrigation access is very low. Extension systems are weak, but farm organizations are surprisingly strong. For Ghana, there's also an issue over fragmented extension services, but also low trust in AI-based tools. In Egypt, we have a rather shocking figure that 54% of farmers have never received any extension advice, and that access to mobile phones and ICT is very uneven. Whereas for Tunisia, water scarcity is one of the major issues. Thank you. So if we want to scale the technologies we're working on, we need to work on knowledge infrastructure. These are the institutions, extension services, and the farmers' organizations, which can scale the technologies we've been working on. We need to look at investing in human capital and training. This can be anything from, oh, sorry. Thank you. This can be any, oh, okay, this is anything from demonstration plots and living labs to the work that advisors provide farmers in the field. And then at the institutional level, in terms of universities, the government institutions we're working with, we need to embed national policies and extension mandates and look at long-term financing for the technologies. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'd like to quickly run through some of the really outstanding results we've had, some of the technologies which are, to be honest, are no-brainers because they've worked so well. So the first one is intercropping legumes in fruit orchards. So intercropping with fava beans as a green manure has really produced outstanding results in fruit production and gross margins in irrigated and rainfall orchards in Tunisia and Egypt. Very good gross margins. We've also seen that if you intercrop common beans with the mangoes in Ghana, you also get very high gross margins, and that's without taking into account the value of the beans. That's just the value of the improved mango harvests. This is a technology where there's no significant barriers to the adoption of crops like fava bean or common beans. These bean varieties are very widely available and they grow well in agroforestry systems. We did have an issue that if all olive farmers in Tunisia were to intercrop with fava beans, that would put a considerable strain on the seed system, which probably wouldn't be able to meet demand. So if we want to get widespread adoption of this, our policy recommendations are to include the use of legume intercropping into good agricultural practice and organic standards for olive and mango production, and where governments are purchasing crops for their national food reserves, increasing the price offered for legumes relative to cereals will increase the production of legumes. And where governments provide input subsidies for farmers, governments should consider including legume seeds in the subsidy programs. Next slide, please. Okay, so conservation agriculture, or no-till agriculture as it's also known, was very effective for maize and olives. It's well known that it's a good agroecological and regenerative agricultural practice for restoring soil health. And it's well known that the greatest yields are under low rainfall conditions, and our research showed that this was in fact true for olives and maize, with no-till giving very good gross margins in dry years by reducing tillage costs and increasing water infiltration into the soil. Again, this is a technology where there's no major technical or economical barriers to adoption. Obviously, farmers do have controls over weed control. In the past, there was limited knowledge of conservation agriculture no-till amongst extension agents, but as most agriculture universities now have modules on conservation agriculture, this is probably no longer an issue. And if we look at the policy options, we need to integrate conservation agriculture or no-till into good agricultural practice and organic standards. And there is potential to reduce the taxes on the equipment we need for no-till. So this is things like rippers and seeders. Next slide, please. Okay, working with UAVs for remote sensing. This can give real-time high-resolution data collection for informed decision making. We can rapidly cover large areas, and this is a sector which is growing fast in Africa. So there's a lot of work happening in Africa already. Now, in this project, we didn't collect enough data to assess the impact of UAVs on gross margins, but looking at other research, the sweet spot for UAV seems to be medium-scale farmers, so that's for 50 to 500 hectare size farms with high-value tree crops. But one thing we have noticed in the 5 years since the start of the project is increased regulation of UAVs in some countries over security concerns. So in order to address these, obviously we want farmers to access UAV services. We do understand that governments do have some security concerns. So our policy recommendations are the creation of either government UAV service providers or government licensed UAV service providers. But that will have to go hand in hand with developing training curricula for drone pilots and for the technicians who can analyze the data and maintain the UAVs. Next slide, please. Okay, the biochar. So Kwame has discussed the results for the biochar. In Burkina Faso, biochar improved maize and sorghum yields and the gross margins for maize. For Ghana, biochar plus compost gave the highest gross margins for maize. And we have, particularly for cotton, where cotton has to be burnt, it's a legal requirement. Converting cotton into biochar is a much more sustainable way to get rid of cotton residues, and the replicability analysis showed that biochar is highly replicable. Okay, the barriers to adoption, but it's not a standalone technology. It does require the use of NPK fertilizer, urea, or mixing with compost, and it does take more time in order to see the results. So we're really seeing the results in the second season. Cotton biochar was uneconomical because cotton prices were too low and the pest impacts were too high. Okay, and we didn't really see an economic improvement in the gross margins for sorghum and cowpea. So again, biochar is something that could be included in the fertilizer subsidies provided by governments to farmers. What we do need to consider is regulating the production of the biochar to ensure it is made from crop residues and we don't get a leakage of trees being used to make biochar, which would increase the risks of deforestation. Next slide, please. Burkina Faso tested the use of rock phosphate, also known as dolomite in French. So it consistently produced the best gross margins for both maize and cotton, but only when it was mixed with compost, NPK, and urea. There is an issue of availability. Sort of rock phosphate dolomite is not available in every country. And with our current very high costs of fuel, transport costs will be an issue because obviously it's not as a concentrated form of phosphate like NPK fertilizers and sources and other phosphate fertilizers. But there is certainly potential for including dolomite in targeted fertilizer subsidies for farmers. Next slide, please. Okay, the use of plastic film as a mulch for the pineapple production, this significantly improved the gross margin for the pineapple farmers, particularly in those seasons which were water stressed. The challenges are it's not widely available. We are concerned about microplastic pollution unless the biodegradable film is used, but biodegradable film is more expensive and again, not widely available. Many governments are restricting the use of non-biodegradable plastics anyway, so government regulations to restrict this will probably impact on plastic film used for a mulch. There is potential for companies which are using outgrower farmer models for pineapple production to provide it and to make sure that use of biodegradable film is included in good agriculture and organic standards. Next slide, please. Insectamon. So this is the app which can count fruit flies on these yellow cards from pheromone traps. The app can be used offline, which obviously makes it easier for farmers to use in areas with limited networks. And it will be integrated into Farmer Line's merged data online services for farmers, and the University of Hildesheim is willing to license the software to any software developers who want to use it. It is currently limited to 4 insect species. There's no reason why we can't add additional species, but this will require commercial support beyond the end of a project. Next slide, please. And so finally, I'd like to summarize. So the high potential technologies. So these are the technologies that have consistently produced good results over many seasons. I'd like to highlight the green manures, particularly fava bean in olive orchards, the use of legumes in mangoes, the no-till and conservation agriculture for maize and olives, the biochar, Insectaman for olive and mango fruit flies, the use of remote sensing UAVs, biodynamic cotton production in Egypt, which I haven't had time to talk about, and the new pearl millet varieties that were tested in Niger. Next slide, please. And then finally, we have the technologies I'm calling the medium potential ones. These are the ones where the results were more variable, or where we've only got one season of results, or which require more research. So the dolomite and rock phosphate, the results were variable. We had some fantastic results in some seasons, less good results in others. Onion intercrop with olives in Egypt, absolutely fantastic results here, but only one season of data, so more research required. As I mentioned, we need to develop Insectaman for other insects, so more R&D is required. And plastic filmers and mulch for results were variable. So that's next slide, please.
So your time is up, Paul.
Thank you. So here is a summary of the policy options. I've already mentioned these, so I won't go through these again. Final slide, please. And I'd like to thank everybody who contributed to the work package 5. So thank you all very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Nicely done. Very interesting presentation. Lots of potential there with those technologies and techniques. So great. Do you mind looking at the questions in the chat again, because we're severely running out of time. We've got a couple of minutes left in the webinar, and I'd like to just move to the concluding slides, and then so that'd be okay, Paul, if you can just look in the chat. Maybe we can bring up the final presentation, and hopefully we won't overrun. Okay, so here I am back again. Thanks for all the positive comments in the chat, by the way. I've been monitoring it. Lots and lots of positive feedback we're getting, so very, very happy about that. Kwame, all the presentations seem to have gone down very well, so excellent work, everyone. Next slide, please. So just in summary, I'm going to give a quick summary and then a couple of take-home messages. So I'll just read that out if you don't mind for accuracy and precision. So SustinAfrica has shown that sustainable intensification is not about a single solution, but about context-specific systems that link productivity, ecology, and social realities. Innovation creates impact only when technology, knowledge, and people are connected through education, participation, and clear uptake pathways. Continued validation, capacity building, and targeted investment are essential to turn promising practices into lasting food system changes. Next, please. Take-home messages. One size does not fit all. Sustainable intensification must be context-specific. African smallholder farmers are highly diverse, as I'm sure you're all aware, particularly, between North and West Africa. Effective innovations must be tailored to different farmers, communities, and agroecological contexts, combining productivity gains with ecological sustainability and social inclusion, rather than focusing on yields alone. As an example from our research, through the training workshops on gender and youth in agriculture value chains, women in Niger formed communities of practice to develop joint strategies to challenge structural barriers to participation. Next slide, please. Innovation works when technology, knowledge, and people are connected. Smart farming for smallholders is not a single high-tech solution, but a flexible system that turns data into better decisions. Its real impact depends on education, practical support networks, participatory knowledge exchange, and clear pathways for access and uptake. An example from our research would be the FarmerLine Merge Data Platform. We have tools up there for adaptive smart monitoring concept from Work Package 2, and this provides data analysis options for many use cases. Next slide, please. Lasting transformation requires investment in capacity, validation, and upscaling. Promising agroecological, I find that word very difficult to say, agroecological precision fertilization and irrigation practices now need wider validation across locations. Continued research, education, and innovation and targeted investment are essential to improve resilience, sustainability, and profitability, while ensuring legitimacy and long-term adoption. Final example. During on-site harvest dialogues in Ghana, farmers recognized the potential of targeted agroecological approaches to increase crop yields and improve soil health. So that's, a quick summary. I think it all just, we're 1 minute over time, so apologies for that, but it just leaves me to thank all our marvelous speakers for their presentations, all the people who participate, all the kind words in the chat. I hope you all enjoyed this webinar and found something useful to take home from it. And again, thank you all very much for joining. I've thoroughly enjoyed the experience myself. Happy Earth Day. Have a happy and productive Earth Day, everyone. Thank you very much.